Photosynthesis. Big word, but let's break it down. Photo, or photons of light, synthesis put together. So we are going to use sunlight. Well, we don't. Plants do. Carbon dioxide gas, water, and make a sugar. Man, I wish I could do that. Okay, there's several reactions, and they get kind of complicated. But basically, what's happening is the plant is capturing sunlight as photons. You see, when sunlight comes down, it comes as a spectrum. And plants don't care about all the wavelengths of light, like green and yellow. They don't absorb these. Violets, blues, orange, reds, they love those. And those are the ones they capture through the accessory pigments. So maybe you've heard of carotene, yellow-orange pigment, or anthocyanins, which are red. Take a look here, there's anthocyanin. Well, these are accessory pigments that are going to capture sunlight. Here I made a little diagram. They're going to boost up an electron and send it to a chlorophyll, which is green. Now, continue with the story. Chlorophyll is a dominant leaf, but let's say you're cooking some kale or some green vegetables. You know, you don't see it, but they're loaded with accessory pigments that are capturing solar photons. And let's say you're walking across a park and the leaves are turning color. You can say, you know, sweetie, I'm kind of like the leaves because I'm there all the time for you, but you don't see me. Right? Okay, well, I don't know if that'll work, but let's get to this photolysis because that's splitting of water, and that's what the plant leaf does. It's going to split water, so it releases oxygen, hydrogen, electrons. Okay, and so that's some of the energy. Now, this photolysis is important because there's the oxygen. And that's why people sing in the shower, right? Because all that water being split, there's lots of oxygen. Or let's say you want to propose to someone. You don't go to a restaurant. There's too much carbon dioxide in there. You go to a waterfall, and they'll say, yes, baby, I'll marry you. Because all that oxygen, they're like buzzing off of it. Okay. All right. Well, this oxygen, I'm kind of building up the story here. We're going to use ATP, and that's the energy to, let's get back to the main story. That is the ATP energy is what the plant's going to use to bond a sugar together. And you can imagine, okay, plants are the masters of life on Earth. They make much of the food energy and much of the oxygen we breathe. So no wonder people get concerned about loss of forests. They also influence the ecosystems because they are what are part of the bottom-up ecology. Okay, the biomass, they weigh the most in most ecosystems, and they provide energy that the herbivores and predators need. Now, but we need predators because they're going to control the herbivores in what's called top-down. So you have predators controlling herbivores top-down. You have plants providing energy bottom-up. And they all work together, hopefully. So we need everybody. Predators are disappearing. Now, when we lose predators, that means sometimes the herbivores get so abundant. And I'm thinking of especially goats and sheep. These animals don't have upper incisors, so they just rip up vegetation. And deserts are spreading in the places like North Africa, Sub-Saharan Sahel. I've seen it myself. It's terrible. And you can't even grow anything here. A serious problem. Okay, we're going to move on to animals. And vertebrate means backbone, but these guys don't have a backbone. I like the worms. Okay, there's lots of invertebrates, but the worms are one of nature's huge success stories. There's so many different types. Flukes. Here's a beauty right here. You can see a sucker for attachment. We see these blood flukes in poor communities, all right? Especially when you have human feces entering the water. I'm talking schistosomiasis here. That's a disease that can affect the liver and kidney, but most of the time it's fairly mild. I know this one well. I live in Kenya, and we sometimes couldn't swim because, see the eggs, they will become larvae that live in snails. And if you see snails with holes in their shell, then you know there's schisto in the water. And so we have to keep even our feet out of the water, because the cercaria, which is the next stage, is going to go right into the skin, and we become the definitive host. Now, it's not too serious at first, but eventually if you start urinating blood, or if your belly starts to swell with fluid, then it's time to go see the doctor. But it's not as bad as some worms. Tapeworms are pretty mellow. Look at this guy. It's got a crown of hooks, and it has suckers. So it's going to attach to the intestinal wall and release lots of proglottids. And these are egg segments that a cow is going to eat, and then the cysts go into the muscle. And then if we eat that steak that's infected, then we complete the life cycle. Symptoms are pretty mild. You lose weight, but it can block organs when you have like a bucket load of tapeworms, which happens, okay? All right. There's some hard places to live out there in the world. Okay, nematodes, roundworms, they have a cuticle, which is very durable, and same with the eggs. I mean, you have to boil these guys to get rid of them. Sorry about that. So one that I'm thinking of is the pinworm. The pinworm is Enterobiasis. And let's go to the next page. I want to show you this life cycle. Itchy anus. That's a symptom. The scratch reflex, because the adult's going to lay eggs right around the perianal region, around the anus. And so the victim scratches, maybe ingests some of them accidentally and gets them in the clothes, spreads them to the family, and pretty soon the pinworms, uncles, aunts, brothers, cousins are getting pinworms, right? It's a fairly common worm. Even in wealthy communities we see it. Okay, this one's not a happy one. Trichinosis, because this is why we don't order rare pork. You can't go to a restaurant and say, I'd like my pork medium rare. They will say, no way, dude, because trichinosis is serious. The cysts are in the pig muscle, but the adults, they're not happy just to hang out in the intestines. They're going to migrate and puncture organs, cause internal bleeding, and death. It's one of the big hazards of being a butcher, by the way, is they are exposed to the trichinella worm. Annelids, segments, so you can see them right here on earthworm. It gives them a lot of range of motion compared to the other worms just flop around, like roundworms, tapeworms. But the annelids have a lot of mobility. They aerate the soil. And leeches, which are a type of segmented worm, they have hirudin, which is used sometimes in medicine because it's an anticoagulant. If someone cuts their finger off, like they're working on their lawnmower, hirudin is sometimes injected, or the actual leech is used, even in modern days. Okay. Arthropods. Look at that word, arthropod, foot, jointed foot. And these have the exoskeleton, which gives them support. That's Carlos. We were in Costa Rica, and he was kind of acting. It was a big spider, all right. But you know, most of them are harmless. They're arachnids. They do have chelicerae for injecting venom, but very few have long enough chelicerae to do any damage. Two major body segments: cephalothorax, abdomen, spinnerets for web spinning. They're a major predator, and so I like the wolf spider. They cruise around people's homes, totally harmless to us. Same with the cellar spider. They make messy webs, but man, they're catching mosquitoes and helping us out. Important pest controls. There's only a few that we have to worry about, and even they are not that bad. The black widow has a neurotoxin. It's going to cause some swelling, pain, stomach cramps, gives me backaches. There's that ventral red mark. Fiddleback spiders, they have a fiddle on their back, a fiddle shape. Brown recluse, same thing. Now, what they do is they leave an ulcer, and then the bacteria cause necrosis. And so really it's the bacteria causing the damage. All the fiddleback does is cause a little hole. And if a person can clean up well enough, they're not going to have problems. Acarians, not my favorite group. Ectoparasites, so they feed on the outside of our body because they burrow their head and their chelicerae. So if you're taking a tick out of your dog or out of yourself, get the head and the chelicerae. Otherwise, you can get erythema because you'll get a fever. The head will stay in there. If you go tugging on the abdomen, sometimes the head and chelicerae will stay in the wound, and then you have problems. So get the tweezers in there. Insects, okay, so we're still in the jointed foot animals with spiders. They are vectors, some of them. Not many, but there's some we have to worry about, like dengue fever, transmitted by mosquitoes. What I don't like about this dengue is we call it backbreak fever, like when I worked in Ecuador, because you get the sharp pains in the joints. It can overwhelm the immune system, the monocytes particularly. So, and it's spreading. That's why I'm talking about it here. Vertebrates, I think of animals with backbones, cervical for the neck, thoracic, lumbar, pelvic, and then sacrum and coccyx. All right, so the vertebra is a major hallmark of this group. I think of, I like the pelvis. The pelvis because there's a lot of muscles that attach to this region, and you get powerful range of motion. And so let's look at this while that video is loading, if it's going to load for me. Come on. Gluteus muscles, all right, they're lateral rotators. Right? A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to do squats to build my glutes. But really, the glutes are powerful lateral rotators. Then we have the vastus and rectus femoris. Okay, these are on the front of the leg, and these give us that powerful extension. And then the bicep femoris. Sometimes people just call these hamstrings. They're going to flex the leg back, so the the heel comes up around here. Okay, I want to show the gluteus, which comes right around here. I previewed this thing. There it is. I love it. Okay, so watch this lateral rotation of, here's the gluteus maximus, and you'll watch when it contracts. It brings the knee laterally. Do you see that? It's a small movement, but man, powerful. Okay, lateral rotation, gluteus maximus. All right, we don't need to know those other guys. The skull, pretty cool stuff here on the skull. Hold on. All right, the skull is held together with these cranial bones, la cránea, no, el cráneo. Anyway, and there's sutures because when a child is born, okay, that mother does not want to deal with a huge head of her baby, and so during childbirth, these plates are going to slide past each other. Thank goodness. There's a tough meninges on the inside. Maybe you've heard of meningitis. And this helps the brain to be anchored in this cerebral spinal fluid that it floats in. Now, one of the problems with having a cranium is how do you get all the nerves out of here? And there are foramina, or foramen is singular. And I think I use that word here. Here it is, foramen. And so there's holes in the skull, in the inferior aspect of the skull. So nerves such as the vagus can move down and talk to the vocal cords and parts of the throat. All right, pretty cool. Thanks for listening.